Welcome to episode 271 of the All the Books Show, the official podcast of the David A. Howe Public Library. We talk book news, author news, and literary news. I'm Eric Mickles.
Yeah. Listen, it's November 2nd, okay? That means tomorrow is election day. If you haven't done early voting, you need to go to your polling place and vote on November 3rd.
Mm-hmm.
If you're listening to this after November 3rd, I don't know what kind of world you're living in. I don't have a clue.
I have a few theories, and none of them
have a clue what your life is like right now. But if you're listening to this on November 2nd or November 3rd, polls are open 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. So if you're listening to this before 9 p.m. on November 3rd, you need to get down to your polling place and vote. Anyway, I'm Nick Gunning.
Do you think people listening to this in, like, December, do you think it's the living envy the dead kind of situation now?
I think it's a situation where they pick up whatever device they're listening on and heave it across the room. That's what I think. but I'm not really sure. Did you say your name yet?
Yeah.
Oh, what is it?
It's Eric Mickles.
That's right. Okay. I knew it was a tip.
Like, yeah.
Tip of my tongue. Tip of my tongue. Eric, today we're doing a sexy new book club. Are you excited?
Mm-hmm. Sure I am.
All right. I like to hear that. Yeah. Let's dive into the old bookmarks.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's been a slow period for me. I don't know what's going on with my mind. But I did read a Psych book. Do you remember the old USA show Psych?
Yes, people have told me about Psych.
You never watched Psych?
It's a 45-minute show. Is it a comedy? Is it a drama? Why is it so long?
Yeah, good question. We never finished it. We got, like, close to the end, and then we were just kind of like, I tell you what, I feel like I've seen this. But for whatever reason, at the beginning of the pandemic, I had a bunch of books that I had, like, purchased at, like, 99-cent, like, deal of the day sort of things. And one of them was the first of the Psych novels that I've had on my Nook for a full decade, probably. And so I finally just read it at the start of this, and it was fine. It was a good time, you know? It was kind of like it was kind of on the same level as like a Murder, She Wrote kind of novel, and I was like, okay, yeah, I can do that. That's an easy transition. So I finished that one. I bought the second one. Here we are, 7 months later, still in the throes of a pandemic, and I thought, you know what? I'm going to read Psych Book 2, Mind Over Magic by William Rabkin. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you what, Eric, I don't think the shtick of Psych really translates to the book form.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever seen any of it?
I think I've seen like 5 minutes of it.
Okay, well, a lot
that
of
might
it
be more than I've seen.
A lot of it is just their interactions. It's all about the timing and the way they play off each other, and that sort of like rapid fire comedy approach to telling those kind of stories gets a little old. Novel format. So nothing against old Bill Rabkin here, because I think he does a pretty nice job. This was about there being like a magic festival, and a body shows up in like a magic trick, and it's not the right body, and so they have to figure it out. It's a decent premise, and the book works pretty well, but I think at the end of the day, like if you're a fan of Psych, this is not going to be a format that's going to work for you. So I doubt that I'll read more. There's 7 or 8 of these books. Nothing real special. Comic book wise, I dug into the depths of Marvel's back catalog and read Marvel Masterworks Spider-Woman, Volume 1. This is the Jessica Drew Spider-Woman. Mm-hmm. There was an old cartoon of this back in the day that I had a VHS tape on.
Yeah.
What's real weird to me is that why in the 70s you would have a spider-based character that has absolutely nothing to do with Spider-Man. Isn't that weird?
Right. Yeah, it is a strange thing that happened.
I mean, like with Hulk and She-Hulk, it's like, yeah, they're cousins, whatever. But like, there's that connection, Yeah. But here, why? Like, why do you do that? I was puzzled by that. It's kind of an interesting backstory because she doesn't have any memory, and she's being like used by Hydra, and there's a lot of stuff with the Thing and the Fantastic Four early on. So it was interesting, but I was very puzzled because nary a mention of Spider-Man. It seems like somebody would be like, "Are you friends with?" You're not. Okay, nothing. Not to mention.
Yeah, it's strange. And they never, like, interact, it felt like.
Yeah, a little bizarre. But again, that was Marvel Masterworks Spider-Woman, Volume 1. I'm currently reading... Are you familiar with it's like more of a junior series than a YA, I think, called The Jupiter Pirates. This is by Jason Fry.
No.
Okay. Well, the first one here is called Hunt for the Hydra. And it's about... I mean, they're privateers, if you want to make a distinction between pirates and privateers, in space...
I do.
And it's like a multi-generational privateering family on this ship. I like it so far. I started reading it with my son, and I will say that it carves out a unique premise, like family in space is not particularly new, but the layers that the author puts in there, I think, are actually pretty good and make it stand alone pretty well.
These. Yeah.
I'd read he's written a lot of Star Wars books. He writes a lot of like Han Solo Tales from Vandor, or like the kind of like the side.
It must be Star
books.
Wars that I recognize the name like being on any cover. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, he wrote The Last Jedi.
Yes. Last Jedi novelization. He wrote those, like the lead up to Force Awakens. There was those 3 hardcover.
The Weapon of a Jedi.
Yes, yeah. He wrote those, and he's done a ton of the DK style books. So, but this is just totally original, set in its own thing. Like I said, I'm reading it with my son, and so far so good.
Yeah.
I'm also reading again some retro comics here by one Jack Kirby. I'm reading his original Challengers of the Unknown.
Hooray, Challengers!
8 issues of this series back in 1958. I feel like at this point, maybe they're most recognizable from the Teen Titans Go to the Movies film. There was a new Challengers series that I don't think anybody cared about. Jeff Lubb and Tim Sale did a Challengers of the Unknown. That kind of, I think it was before their Long Halloween and some of their more well-known stuff. But Challengers is one of those things where it's like they made the Challengers, and then Marvel was like, we'll just make the Fantastic Four, because they have a very similar vibe to the Fantastic Four. So I haven't really sat down and read Challengers before, but I'm enjoying it. It's interesting.
All right.
What about you? What's on your list at the moment?
Let's see. I've read the graphic novel adaptation of The Invasion by K.A. Applegate.
Oh my gosh.
The first Animorphs book
It's finally happened.
Was adapted by Chris Grine, is the person in charge of the adaptation and also the art. And the art is definitely a very strong... All the creatures look exactly like I imagined them. The Andalites, the Hork-Bajir. I mean, the Andalites and the Hork-Bajirs have been drawn before, so it's not that big of a deal. They've been on covers and stuff. But the Taxons look right. One thing I really appreciate about it, besides the fact that it is basically a straight adaptation of The Invasion, so like reading it, I'm like, yep, I remember this. Man, I must have read the first Animorph book a couple of times, if you could believe it.
Yeah,
as a kid,
I do believe it.
I reread a lot of them multiple times, but reading this again, I was like, oh yeah, I did read The Invasion a whole bunch. But what I appreciate about his art is he makes the animals look like animals. Like it's not. The kids kind of have these like little buttony noses a bit. It kind of comes across as like the art for the kids looks like it's being geared towards kids. And the animals do too, but they're not like kiddie versions. Like when they're a tiger and a gorilla, even a dog, they just look like animals, which I think is pretty important for the Animorphs. That when they turn into their tiger, they're not just, big Disney-fied tiger eyes and everything. But it's thick. I mean, this thing is doing the entire first book, and there's not a lot that I think it left out. And they're going to be doing the second one. And, how far are they going to take these? I'll read them all.
Okay.
So there's a jealousy on my end. The desire to keep what is mine. Because while reading this, I'm like, this is going to make new fans.
How dare they?
And and part of me is like, that's great, more people reading the Animorphs, but I'm afraid that if more, they sold millions of copies. There's plenty of Animorph fans out there, but there is this kind of like jealousy. I'm like, well, the kids today should read Animorphs, but they shouldn't because it's my Animorphs.
Well, I remember when we got a big donation of all the Animorph books, and you were able to like fill out our collection with the ones that were missing and stuff. But you eventually moved them down to the stacks because you were kind of like,
they weren't checking out.
Kids just don't get the Animorphs anymore. And at that time, you were sad about that.
I was sad about that.
So maybe you're fickle.
When you read Invasion, and then any of them, they are very 90s. A lot of the pop culture references are 90s.
Yes, they are.
And so the graphic novel clears that up. But yes, I'm glad if kids read it. I would hope that it keeps going because, I've been hanging out on a Animorphs Reddit page where there's lots of memes and everything. And the regular joke on the Animorphs Reddit when it comes to memes is to do like there's 2 types of Animorph books. There's the hey I'm a kitty cat meow,
right.
And there's the war is hell. I have forgotten what dawn even feels like. Every day is a challenge to wake up. Like the invasion kind of hints at that, the second part of that. So I'm
Okay.
hoping it keeps going where they're like, oh no, I don't know who to trust. Every day I wake up screaming. So,
Fun.
yeah. I was always into like animals and like into animal facts and learning about them. But I mean, Animorphs just sent that into stratosphere. I would hope that also happens with like these graphics, that people read this and like they're like, oh, I'm gonna go do a tiger report. I'm gonna go read about tigers or something. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Well, hey, if that wasn't enough Animorphs talk for you, you can go back into the All the Books archives here, soundcloud.com/allthebooks, or wherever you get your podcasts. Look up episode 244, Animorphs at Last, the K.A. Applegate Spotlight. That's a fun episode because, well, it's a bit of a tearjerker because it's the last episode we actually recorded together in my office in the same room. But we recorded it in early March, but it came out in late April. So it's like... we're all like, we have the whole world. So I think that's when we actually put bumpers on the beginning and end that was like, listen, we sound delighted in this. This was in early March. But anyway, that's episode 244, Animorphs at Last. I'm glad it didn't disappoint. It's always... It's always scary when you take something like that that's beloved and adapted. It doesn't always work, so I'm glad this paid off for you.
Honestly, there are scenes like when they go to the gardens, which is like the amusement park / zoo. I'm like, well, that's exactly how I imagined it. Even the Yerk pool looked exactly how I remember thinking about it. Another like literary graphic novel connection is I read White Sand, Volume 1. The art is by Rick Hoskins and Julius Gopez.
Okay.
This is Brandon Sanderson.
Oh, okay.
So having listened to Writing Excuses for a couple of years, I had heard him mention this a few times. This is one of his treasure chest writing things where he had written it and it just couldn't get it out. His trunk book, where like every time he came to it, he just couldn't get it right. Every time he thought like, okay, I finally figured out White Sand. I'm going to write it. It just wouldn't work. So it kept going back to the trunk. And then somebody came up to him. It was Dynamite graphic novels. They were like, do you have anything you'd like to do graphic novel? He's like, well, maybe this is the chance to do White Sand. So this isn't a adaptation of a novel as a graphic novel. This is just the only version of White Sand there is. So it's just a fantasy story, like standard. It's like a lot of world building. The magic system has a lot of give and take to it. You know, kind of epic fantasy. I think there's 3 volumes out right now. I just read the first to see if I'd like it. It's good. I'd probably read some more. I'm not a huge fan of the art, but it has kind of a loose, like, sketchbook quality to it, so your mileage on the art might vary. But yeah, I mean, I imagine if you enjoy Brandon Sanderson in general, you'd probably like White Sand, and since this is the only version of that story... Okay. I also read Harleen by Stephen Sejic.
That's nominated for a Goodreads Choice Award this year.
It is nominated for it. It's the only thing I've read from the Goodreads Choice Award.
I know. I hadn't read very many this year either.
I'll talk way more about this over on Comic Book Coffee Break, but basically it's just a big prestige retelling or telling of Harley Quinn's origin from her start as like a psychiatrist looking to get funding, to working in Arkham, to meeting the Joker and all that. I mean, if you've read Mad Love or seen the episode Mad Love, there's a lot of beats that are just taken from that. I don't think you can stray far from that, but there's a lot added to it. It's way more adult. The art is definitely like the selling point. It's a big hardcover. I think it was like 3 issues, like prestige issues, but the hardcover is very big and very fancy. It's part of the DC Black Label, which is basically just DC's Joker label these days. It's weird to read it because I do think people today are less interested in Harley Quinn as the Joker's girlfriend. Right. Into like Harley Quinn by herself or teamed up with Poison Ivy, like being her own independent, I don't want to say anti-hero because it still feels like she's very much like a villain. Right. Whereas Deadpool is going for the anti-hero thing. It's almost like Harley's the anti-villain. Okay. Like she's a villain who also sometimes does good. Yeah, all right. This is very much going for the Harley Quinn in a toxic relationship, but the Joker is like sexed up a bit in this. He looks younger and everything. It's kind of like the rock star Joker, which I just read it. I'm like, I don't know. And there's also hints that maybe Joker is committed, and I'm just like, there's some stuff in here that I don't. But I'm like, I come from the Mad Love origin story, so it's hard to get away from some of that stuff.
Yeah.
But anyway, this is probably the thing to give somebody.
I saw this and I just didn't have any interest in it. I don't particularly like Harley Quinn as like a solo character. I read Breaking Glass, the YA one that came out, and it just, I don't know, not something that really appeals to me, though I know she's a super popular character.
And I also read A Head Full of Ghost by Paul Tremblay.
Oh, your Halloween read. How was that?
It was good. Couple of twisty little reveals near the end.
All right.
I don't know. I mean, there's actually a scene or two that really grossed me out.
Okay.
Really disturbed me, not because I thought they were scary, but because I was like, oh, that's an image I don't need, that I didn't appreciate, and thinking about it is making me making my teeth itch. But in terms of scary, there's at the beginning I was a little bit more creeped out, but as it went on, less so.
Yeah.
The whole thing is basically two sisters growing up. The older sister might be possessed or might just be suffering from schizophrenia. It's always a bit which one is it? And so the mom and dad are trying to get her help by taking her to psychiatrists. The dad is a born-again Catholic, so he's taking her to church. They're low on money, so they actually turn their home. They invite this TV show called The Possession to come and film their lives.
Oh, that's funny.
And so there's a bit of what's real, what's being staged for the show. Is the daughter faking it, or is she really sick? Some things are never really answered. I think the thing that's scary from the beginning, and maybe stays through a little bit, is the younger sister is 8. So there's the fear that she's as young as she is, she's going to be over her head, no matter what she's in.
Yeah, okay.
It's this bit of get this cute little precocious girl out of there. And also because she's 8, but when she's telling the story later, she's 23, so there's a bit of unreliable narrator.
Yeah.
And the whole, I mean, it's not just her, it's just Paul Tremblay. There's a lot of unreliable narrator. So at the end, there's some questions, and I don't necessarily think there are supposed to be answers.
Okay.
So I might read another Paul Tremblay book.
Okay.
So yeah.
Well, maybe I will too, darn it.
Yeah, I would not suggest this for you. I don't know when you got out, but you probably got out when you get good.
Thanks. I started watching the HBO Max series The Undoing. So it's with Nicole Kidman and Hugh Grant, and created by David E. Kelly, who, I love from way back, The Practice and all that. It's based on the novel You Should Have Known by Jean Han Corlitz. It's interesting so far. Sets up a compelling mystery. Only one episode is out at our time of recording, so we're going to stick with it, but I'm intrigued with the start. I also watched The Mothman Prophecies with Richard Gere and Laura Linney. Have you ever seen this?
No. Why am I thinking this had Michael Keaton? What was he in?
Oh, I mean, you're just thinking of White Noise?
Oh, that's it.
It's the cover has kind of a similar vibe.
Okay.
My wife liked it more than I did. I thought this was dead boring. This is Deborah Messing plays Richard Gere's wife, and before they're in some car accident, she sees this image of a Mothman, and then several people see this, and then crazy things start happening in conjunction with it.
I listened to the Do Go On episode of the Mothman.
Okay.
Urban legend, I guess. So.
Yeah. The movie just never did it for me, but I bring it up specifically because it's based on the novel of the same title by John Keel. John Keel is from Hornell, New York.
Oh,
so
that's fun.
He's our neighbor, old John Keel.
Gosh,
but I don't recommend The Mothman Prophecies.
You know what? I did do a page to screen. It was my pick, and I'm still picking some spooky stuff. So we watched Sleepy Hollow.
Oh, okay.
With the 1999
Depp?
film. Yeah, Johnny Depp, Christina Ricci, lots of people. Chris Walken, a lot of Tim Burton people in there. The dad from Beetlejuice is in there. The Emperor Palpatine is in there briefly, but also I was Michael Gould.
Okay.
Who played Alfred in the Tim Burton in the 90s Batman films.
Gao.
Michael Gao.
Yeah.
So that is a page to screen because
there you go.
But yeah, It's pretty gross, actually.
Okay.
I don't know. You have never seen it, right?
No, I haven't. But
yeah, the
the
beheadings are
Disney
gross.
the Disney Headless Horseman Ichabod Crane thing terrified the life out of me.
So we watched that beforehand.
Terrified me.
We just watched the chase between Ichabod and him because they had it on Disney Plus. I was like, is this still scary? And I watched it. I was like, yeah, this is still pretty like scary imagery.
I'm not
and
surprised.
I looked it up and stuff. And Tim Burton had worked in his early Disney days with the guy who had storyboarded that. So like Tim Burton like got to like look at the storyboards for this original Sleepy Hollow, the Disney one. Isn't it crazy that you would watch the Adventures of Mr. Toad and then it would just become Ichabod Crane as a kid?
Yeah.
Both ending with like these crazy like car chases,
I know.
really.
I know. Mr. Toad's Wild Ride at Disney World was my favorite ride. I was very sad when it closed.
Yeah. There's a few shots in the Tim Burton Sleepy Hollow that are like ripped right from the Disney adaptation.
Really?
There's a scene where like some kids are playing like a
if
prank.
it ain't broke, you know.
They're playing a prank on Ichabod, and so there's the shot, almost shot for shot, of the flaming pumpkin, the jack-o'-lantern, just going straight at his head. I'm like, well, that's just, and it's nice that I watched the cartoon one first because I was like just pulling. But yes, the live action one, if you haven't seen it, from '99, pretty gross, takes a lot of liberties, has some like crazy imagery, but it was a good time. It was still kind of slick. It has that like 1999 we can do big studio but also auteur filmmaker in one kind of thing that like maybe we don't get so much since the 90s.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So that was I think next up for my pick is also 1999, Blair Witch, but that's not paid screen, I don't think.
Okay. All right, let's roll into a little news.
Book news segment.
Look into the future to see what it proves. It's time for book news.
All right, well, before we get to book news, we have a little bit of podcast news that we need to share. I don't know where to start. The beginning, I guess.
I moved to North Carolina.
Yes, he
did.
Back in March. So since that time, we had several stacked up. How many weeks were we doing like double podcasts? That almost killed you. Do you remember that?
Oh my gosh, a few weeks beforehand, because you had to keep track, and then even during the summer.
Yeah, and we were
like, so you know, we're this far ahead, so we're recording for this, and so I have to talk about this news, but then it makes it sound like we're crazy people.
Right. Yeah,
like in the past.
Yeah, that was exactly how it went, and some we even, because we had like interviews and stuff, we recorded like out of sequence, so it was like we had this elaborate like Da Vinci Code-esque plot line of how we keep the episode numbers straight.
Keen listeners will notice I haven't been in many of the interviews.
That's true. That's true. So since that time, once we caught up to everything that we'd pre-recorded, we've been doing it as we are right now on Skype, and it's been working so far. And we're having a good time with it and everything. But looking back at how long it's been, I mean, the first episode was August of 2015, right?
2015.
So I mean, that's a
29
lot.
Years old.
Exactly. So that's 270 weeks now that we've been doing this every single week. So we kind of got to talking about the future and what made sense for the next steps of the podcast now that we're not in the same place, and now that Eric's taken a new job at another library. And what we don't want to happen is for it to start to become cumbersome or be less fun or get to a point where we're just sort of like punching the podcast clock, right?
We don't want a season 9 of The Office.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Although it did have some good moments. I think we have to admit that there were some good moments there. So all that to say is we've been talking this over, and it's been a sad conversation trying to figure out what makes the most sense. And we've decided that we're gonna start winding things down on the All the Book Show and have episode 275 be our fond farewell from the All the Book Show.
Yep.
Which is sad. I mean,
it will be sad. We got, like he said, 5 episodes left. It'll be sad, but it's been good. It's been a good 5-year run. I've followed podcasts that haven't lasted.
I know,
for 5 years or more at this point.
I'm very sentimental, and the thought of I was like, that makes sense. And then I'm like,
I offered to split the podcast in half.
Right.
And Nick would get half of the podcast.
Yes.
I get the other half. And
That's
he was
what we
like, no,
discussed.
you take it. I was like, you are the true father of this podcast.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what that means as far as going forward is it's not the end of a David A. Howe Public Library podcast, but there's no All the Book Show without Eric. It wouldn't be fun to be like just me being like, hey, it's just me. So we're
down in your basement like pirate radio.
Yep. Yeah, I mean,
listen, podcasts, big business doesn't want you buying books at this local independent store, but I got news for big business. It's not in charge.
Yeah.
Wolfman Nick is in charge.
I've got a full beard. There's just cans of Fresca knocking down everywhere I turn. Yeah. But anyway, the bottom line is the David A. Howe Library is going to go forward with the podcast. So I've been looking at some different formats and different ways to do that. So hold tight in the feed here after 275. Keep an eye out for what comes next. We've got some cool guests lined up, and it'll be weird. It'll be different, but we're gonna keep pushing forward on that. And as you'll recall, 20 weeks ago, I know that because there are 20 episodes, we started an All the Book Show spinoff called Comic Book Coffee Break.
Mm-hmm. Where basically, I mean, we've talked about it before on the show, but it's our bookmark section. It's just only comics. Yeah. We tried to make it so that you wouldn't have to hear all the comics in our bookmarks.
That's right.
Which hasn't really worked out for the All the Books crowd, but the Comic Book Coffee Break crowd.
Yeah.
It's been 100. The promise has been met.
That's right. So right now we've been doing that mainly on YouTube. You can find more information about it at radiomeanwhile.com, or again, you can search Comic Book Coffee Break on YouTube. And we're planning on turning that into a podcast in the future. But that's just a more laid back conversation where we're just talking about the things that we read that week. So a little different
Less
in that
pirate radio.
Right.
Less Wolfman Nick pirate radio.
Yes.
Being like, Amazon used to mean a bunch of trees down in South America. Now it means big business.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So, you know, if you like I said, if you want to follow the David A. Howe Public Library podcast, you don't have to resubscribe or anything. Just stick right with this feed. If you want to listen to Eric and I talk about comic books and other things, really just kind of pop culture things in general, click over to Comic Book Coffee Break and check that out. That, like I said, that's been going for 20 episodes, 20 weeks now, so you can find that right now. And we're going to drop a few episodes in this feed just so you can get a taste of it. But it's always hard when things come to an end, and I'm just glad that we're at least near a round number, you know, where it feels like a satisfying 275 to me I can deal with, whereas like an episode...
A 297 would be bad.
I agree. Yeah, that would... I really would never get out of bed again.
Yeah.
That would... I couldn't get over that. That would
just record 3 more episodes. Now! I'm not doing it.
It's pretty hard to believe. I mean, I know because you say the number every week, but just to think about the fact that we've done it for 275 straight weeks. I mean, Christmas, all holidays, like we've somehow made it work. So it's
no holiday over on the All the Books show.
Yeah. And it's I mean, I'm glad that we have other things cooking and those are still fun too, but I am really sad to say goodbye to the All the Books show. That's going to be sad. I'm going to feel it.
Yeah. It's a sad time.
Yep.
But all things must end, even good seasons of The Simpsons.
Right. Which ended decades ago at this point, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. Okay. So in a way, we're avoiding The Simpsons effect.
That's right.
Which is nice.
Yep.
We're going out at, season 5 of The Simpsons.
Yeah.
Well, that's even better.
Yeah,
Man,
solid.
The Simpsons have gone out season 5.
That's a good era. Although isn't
bring
season 6 kind of a legiondary season?
Yes.
So you're kind of undercutting your own point, is what I'm saying.
What if we cut out the first season of The Simpsons?
Okay. I think most people would accept that.
Start at season 2,
right.
End at season 6 of The Simpsons.
Yes.
Boom.
Yep. Okay. Well, again, thanks everybody for listening for these last 270 episodes, and we'll be here for 5 more. So,
we're bringing back some of our favorite guests.
Sure. Yep. Clint McGavin, cowboy lawyer. We'll have to book him for a return. We were very. Spader. I mean, we'll talk about this in a later episode, but we were very character heavy in the beginning.
More heavy.
We were. Yeah, it was.
There was a weird.
It was serialized. It was serialized. Yep.
Where there were characters. And somehow they did interact, and we always try to figure out how they related.
Yeah.
It's strange. And I feel like recently, like I talked about Brando Sando and the Time Machine, I was like, any new listener
just traveling
coming in
book.
An episode
not gonna
200
understand.
plus is going to be like, what?
Poor
Brando
Smarticus.
Sando.
Smarticus also, who was lost in time early on, as you'll recall. But yeah,
Roger really is the only one who's lasted.
He has.
I can't say he's done
unfortunately,
anything for it.
I would trade Roger for any of the other recurring characters, but
I would trade Roger for a half-eaten Reese's peanut butter cup.
Actually, I have one. Would you like to? Because Roger could
go
come
ahead.
down.
He's your
No. I get the Reese's, and Roger
deal.
comes down to North Carolina. You said you would trade.
Wait, Because you already had Roger as well. Darn it. I
didn't
think about that.
I'm going to send him via bus.
What do I do with Roger down here?
I don't know. You have other podcasts. He could help.
I think he's proven he can't help.
Okay.
So, you know what? I know Roger is a podcast person here.
Yeah.
But I do have an animosity towards him. Just do your job.
Yeah.
Like, I do have a legitimate, real animosity towards Roger.
Yeah. Well, he's earned it. I think he's earned that by his behavior. All right. Well, that's it for sad podcast news. Shall we get into...
actually, who's going to tell Ben? Should we have Roger deliver the letter?
I think that would make sense. He could finally prove himself useful.
Okay, yeah, because I mean, it's a little known fact, but Ben comes to the recordings every episode.
Yeah,
and plays everything
with his little guitar. Yes, he sure does.
And we pay for his bus money, and then we give him a tuna sandwich every time.
Yep.
And I don't know what he's gonna do without that tuna.
I don't either. So. He's been living on tuna on a weekly basis, so that's rough.
Yeah, like a snake.
What's on the New York Times bestseller list?
Okay. Number 10 is The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett.
Yeah.
Not Michael Bennett? No. Who's the Bennett on
Michael Bennett
SNL?
Michael Bennett is a James Patterson character. You're thinking of Beck Bennett from SNL.
Bennett.
No, he didn't write this though.
Anyway, The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett. The lives of twin sisters who run away from Southern black communities at age 16 diverge as one returns, and the other takes on a different racial identity, but their fates intertwined.
Okay.
Number 9, The Book of Two Ways by Jodi Picoult. So you can read this left to right.
Oh, because it's two different. Okay, well I like a book with a gimmick, sure.
After surviving a plane crash, a death doula travels to Egypt to reconnect with an old friend who is an archaeologist.
I still don't like the name.
This is one that actually got me... Like, oh, wow, that is just so much going on. I feel like I should read it to see how this all connects.
Yeah.
I'm a death doula.
Might as well.
Number 8, Troubles in Paradise. Oh, that's the last place you want to have troubles.
No.
Ellen Hildebrand.
It goes against the whole premise of Paradise.
This is the final installment of the trilogy that includes Winter in Paradise. Troubles in Paradise is the last? Well, that's not how you want to end Paradise either.
No.
7, a book that freaked you out, Mexican Gothic.
It didn't freak me out. It was maybe the most surprised I've been by a book in a while, and I will let the readers decide if that's a good surprise or not. But I did not rate it high.
All right. In 1950s Mexico, a debutante travels to a distant mansion where families' secrets of a fated mining empire have been kept hidden.
Mm-hmm.
In a mine?
There is a mine is involved. Yes, that's true.
Number 6, The Invisible Life of Adi LaRue.
Mm-hmm.
A Faustian bargain comes with a curse that affects the adventure Adi LaRue has across centuries. Wow. V.E. Schwab, I should have said.
Okay. Oh, right. Yes. Okay, that makes sense.
Number 5, Anxious People by Frederick Bachman. A failed bank robber holds a group of strangers hostage at an apartment open house.
Sure.
That was on the Goodreads Choice Awards as well.
I think you're right.
Number 4 is The Evening in the Morning by Ken Follett. Oh my gosh. In the prequel to Pillars of the Earth, a boat builder, a Norman noblewoman, and a monk live in
England
in
a bar.
Under attack by the Welsh and the Vikings. So I imagine a lot of downtrodden farmers, a lot of just piddling around, and then like, what if we built something?
Yeah.
Hey!
Yeah.
Now you're thinking with pillars.
Who's this guy? Where's he coming from? He kind of won me over.
You know what I hate about myself, and I hate a lot of things about myself. Most everything.
It's getting real.
But one thing that I'm really hating about myself right now is reading that description. I'm like, maybe I should read The Evening in the Morning by Ken Follett.
Listen, man, you read all of Pillars of the Earth. I think you have to. I think you owe it to yourself.
It's one of those things, though, where I've read it and I feel like I should get the terrible mom advice from Diane Lane, and she should just be like, you don't owe Ken Follett anything.
Yeah. True. It's sunk cost at this point. You can't get your time back.
Oh,
so you decide.
True. Yeah. The Searcher by Tana French. Okay. After a divorce, God, I hate Justice League. I hate that, and I hate Batman v Superman.
I hate. You do.
Oh, when I think about it, I
know, it really upsets you.
Can't. I can't.
And you shouldn't have to.
The Searcher by Tana French. After a divorce, a former Chicago police officer resettles in an Irish village where a boy goes missing. That's scary.
You should look into it.
Number 4, The Return by Nicholas Sparks. A doctor studying the Navy in Afghanistan, goes back to North Carolina, where 2 women change his life.
And they build a cathedral over the course of several generations. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
Okay, cool.
This is just a sly way of saying that this is a gender swap version of Frankenstein, where both Frankenstein and Igor are being played by women, and the doctor has died, and they're bringing his corpse back to life, thus changing his life.
Changing his life. We just did a book club on Frankenstein. Interesting conversation. The book is not what you expect when you watch any of the movies or adaptations of Frankenstein. Yeah, you start it and you're like, what? Wait, what?
You really have to watch Bride of Frankenstein to get a closer adaptation to the book.
I guess
and Bride of Frankenstein is also just a better movie.
Yeah. He's real chatty. The monster's real chatty in that book.
Yes, he is.
All he says in the movies is, but this one he's like, what is it all about? I'm here. What's my purpose? You created me.
Yeah.
Why did you create me?
So you've seen the movie and you know what he sounds like.
Yeah.
You've read the book and you've read what he says, but you assume that's what he sounds like.
Yeah.
You assume that Frankenstein is being played by some 1990s version of a Muppet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That was a little Sam Eagle. You're right. Thanks.
Yeah,
you know what? I appreciate you keeping me on my toes.
Jim Henson's Frankenstein.
Yeah. No.
What doth make a man,
Wait.
Kermit?
Why is there not a Jim Henson's Frankenstein?
Right? Yeah.
That's insane.
Why
do you make Christmas Carol and then Treasure Island and then Muppets from Space? Like what?
That's crazy.
Like two things really work and then Muppets from Space.
Does Gonzo play the monster or does he play the doctor? That's where it kind of falls. I'm unsure.
No, I think he's got to play the doctor because you picture Gonzo being like, he's alive, and Rizzo is right there to be Igor. It's perfect. Yeah. It is perfect. Yeah. And I think the monster has to be Sweetums, probably.
Oh, that's pretty good. Yeah.
Okay.
I think you get away with making like maybe Fozzie the monster, but
that's true.
Yeah, Sweetums just looks the role.
He's got it. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And then he can just like ride around in town on a bike.
Yeah.
Boy, they love showing Sweetums on a bicycle.
They do. They really like that effect. All right.
Yeah. And then you just have maybe a romance between Miss Piggy can play Bride of Frankenstein.
Yeah, that would look good.
That's so funny.
She could pull off that hair, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely she could.
All right. We created you to marry our monster over here, Frankenstein. Hard pass. No thanks.
Wow, Eric, you're not known for your voice work, but that Miss Piggy is that's perfect.
Yeah. All right, Bride of Frankenstein, but she falls in love with Kermit, who's a regular villager.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, mm-hmm. Kermit, I may be a monster.
I don't know. I'm not really into monsters. Get over here, frog.
This is breathtaking.
I love it. I love this Muppet Frankenstein thing.
I do too. I think it's pretty good. Yeah.
Number 1, A Time for Mercy by John Grisham.
I have that book, and I have The Vanishing Half. I got them right in my hands. I'm ready to read them.
3rd book in the Jake Briggs series.
Yeah.
A 16-year-old is accused of killing a deputy in Clinton, missed in 1990.
Okay. All right. I've got a couple options here that I pulled from our new shelf. Do you have your sexy new books ready?
Yeah.
Then we have But to Listen to the Maestro.
Sexy new book club.
Mm-hmm. He brings it. For this song, he brings it. He knows what he's doing. He knows what he's doing, and it's appreciated. All right. I've got 2 for you today, Eric. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. The first one I have for you is an adult book. The Washington Post says its lyricism feels like a warm song. And it is called How the Penguin Saved Veronica. The cover is, it's nice and sky blue. We got a cruise ship in the background. We got several penguins and an old lady's purse on the cover. It's by Hazel Pryor. I'll tell you why I picked this, Eric, because I have a soft spot for
penguins on the cover.
I've got a soft spot for stories that are in like Alaska or Antarctica or any of these like desolate places. Great Alone. Perfect example. Let me tell you a little bit for the back cover here. First of all, does the cover do anything for you?
I mean, it's kind of, what do we call that kind of art? Like
charming.
The old 1960s, like airplane
Yeah. Okay.
ads.
I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
85-year-old Veronica McCready is estranged from her family and wants to find a worthwhile cause to leave her fortune to. When she sees a documentary about penguins being studied in Antarctica, she tells the scientist she's coming to visit and won't take no for an answer. Shortly after arriving, she convinces the reluctant team to rescue an orphaned baby penguin. He becomes part of life at the base, and Veronica's closed heart starts to open. Her grandson Patrick follows Veronica to Antarctica to make one last attempt to get to know his grandmother. Together, Veronica, Patrick, and even the scientists learn what family, love, and connection are all about. This sounds a little syrupy sweet.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to lie to you.
You picked up a book with that cover.
Yeah.
With just penguins hanging out with an airplane in the background.
I know.
And it says, "The penguins save Veronica." And you're like, oh, I hope this is a gritty,
I thought it was a hard-hitting, yeah, I really did.
Yeah.
From Alyssa Friedland, author of The Floating Feldmans, she says, Veronica McCready is an unforgettable heroine, crotchety, clever, and oddly lovable, a story of love, loss, forgiveness, and the unlikely bonds that form when we least expect it. Here's the thing. You know what you're getting when you pick up a book like this, you know? Mm-hmm. There's nothing that I can tell you. If you don't see this and want to read it, I can't change your mind, because you know what it is. All right, let me give you a little bit of the first chapter here. The Balloways, Ayrshire, Scotland, May 2012. I've told Eileen to get rid of all the mirrors. I used to like them, but I certainly don't now. Mirrors are too honest. Ain't that the truth? Mm-hmm. Eric, have you put on any quarantine weight, can I ask?
I've put on weight over the past few years. I'm not allowed to talk about it because I'm a little sensitive about it.
Okay, understood.
Had to up my pants size.
I'm not too proud to say I feel like I've put on a little bit of quarantine weight.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's great because actually I've gained weight, but I definitely have lost years.
Disagree.
My life expectancy.
Oh, well, that's true, yeah.
Yeah.
There's only so much truth a woman can take. Are you sure, Mrs. McCready? Her voice implies she knows my mind better than I do. She always does that. It's one of her innumerable annoying habits. Of course I'm sure. She clicks her tongue and tilts her head to one side so that her corkscrew curl brush against her shoulder. It's quite a maneuver when you consider the extraordinary width of her neck. Yowzer.
Wow. Stephen King writing this?
I know. Even the lovely one with the gilt edge. The one with the mantelpiece? Yes, even that one, I explained patiently. And all the bathroom mirrors, too? Especially those. The bathroom is the last place I want to look at myself. Whatever you say. This tone is slightly bordering on impertinence. I don't.
For the listener, that was Nick, not the book,
that
talking about impertinence. That was not the character of Veronica.
No, that wasn't. That was. Don't you put words in my mouth. Yeah. I'm not feeling it. I don't like the first person.
Wow, you gave up fast.
Listen, it's the first person. I think in a story like this, you need the third person, more distance look at it so you can really talk about the characters. I think putting it from the perspective of this protagonist is going to make the book more annoying than interesting and a little too, the Precious scale, it's a little going to be too high in the Precious scale, I think, right now. So I didn't mean to say scale. I know you're sensitive about your weight. That's not what I meant. I just meant when you're looking at the preciousness, where it's going to fall is going to be higher than the average allowable quotient of preciousness. Right. What do you got? Are you doing YA?
Not Muppet preciousness.
Not that. No, not that.
No. Yeah, I've got some YA books.
Hit me.
So you remember the series, the Stalking Jack the Ripper, Stalking Houdini, Stalking Dracula, Stalking the Devil.
Yeah.
Again, just cracks me up to no end that you have Harry Houdini, who, as far as I know, is just a magician, an illusionist, an escape artist from a while ago, and he's being categorized in the same situation as the devil. The author, Carrie Menescalo, the same author of the Jack the Ripper series, has written a new book, new series. So it's under the James Patterson Presents line again. Not the Jimmy Pattersons, the James Patterson Presents. Because, a lot of teen readers are like, whoa, Jimmy Patterson wrote this? Yeah. Actually, I make fun of that now, but James Patterson has a lot of kids' books.
Yeah, he does. Yeah.
So they're going to come across that. Yeah.
The Treasure Hunters books and everything. Yeah, it actually might have a bit of a draw.
Well, I am not a millionaire.
Yeah. I don't know what to tell you.
Because I'm not James Patterson?
Yeah. I think the Maximum Ride books have kind of seen their day, but those were still pretty popular in their time.
Graphic novels are still popular, but they come out every 3 years.
I know, it's insane.
It's ridiculous.
My wife was reading that series, and I brought her the new one, and she was like, oh my gosh, they're still doing this? I was like, I don't remember that. Anyways,
this is called Kingdom of the Wicked by Carrie Menescalo. New series, two sisters, one brutal murder, a quest for vengeance that will unleash hell itself in an intoxicating romance.
Okay.
Amelia and her twin sister Victoria, nope, sorry, that's Vittoria,
Oh.
are stragae, witches who live secretly among humans, avoiding notice and persecution. One night,
Oh.
Victoria misses dinner service at the family's renowned Sicilian restaurant. Amelia soon finds the body of her beloved twin, desecrated beyond belief. Devastated, Amelia sets out to find her sister's killer and seeks vengeance at any cost, even if it means using dark magic that's been long forbidden.
I'm sorry, did you say dark magic?
Yeah, what do you think I said?
No, I just was making sure. As long as it's not forbidden, I think that's fine, though.
No, it's been long forbidden.
What?
Long forbidden.
Oh, that's a
Chapter
double whammy.
1.
You can't have
Chapter
both.
1.
Okay.
Nona Marisa buzzed around the kitchen in our family's restaurant like she guzzled every drop of espresso we used to make our famous tiramisu. Her mood was downright frantic. My twin was late for dinner service, and our grandmother saw it as a potent of doom, especially since Victoria was out after dark on a holy day, goddess forbid. The fact that the moon was not only full, but also a putrid shade of yellow, had Nona muttering dire warnings, which would normally lead my father to bolt the doors.
Sure.
Thankfully, he and Uncle Nino were in the dining room with a bottle of Limoncello, pouring after-dinner drinks for our customers. No one left Sea and Vine without sipping the dessert liqueur and savoring the utter bliss that followed a good meal. Mock me all you like, but it's not safe. Demons are prowling the streets, searching for souls to steal. Nuna chopped cloves of garlic for the scampi, her knives flying across the worn cutting board. If she wasn't careful, she'd lose a finger. Your sister is foolish to be out. She stopped, immediately shifting her attention to the little horn-shaped amulet around her neck. Worrying lines carved a deep path around her eyes and mouth. Did you see if she was wearing her Coroncello, Amelia?
No, sorry, I've lost the thread. Which one of these is Saving the Penguins?
No, that's your book.
Oh, darn it. Yes, you're right. Okay.
What if we skip ahead a little bit? Does anything happen?
Let's see.
Looks like a long story.
I will say the first person I think is working a little better for this one. I don't mind that so much.
Yeah.
I don't know. It seemed like they'd set up sort of even in that brief little bit, I think they were kind of sprinkling in little bits of like the mythology of how these characters like work and like the magic world. You know, I didn't hate it. What did you think?
I'm hungry for some Italian food.
Yeah, that's true. I'm always hungry for Italian food though.
Something garlicky.
Carbs though. What are you going to do?
Yeah, what are you going to do?
I don't know.
You can't do anything unless you got dark magic that's been long forbidden.
Yeah.
And then it's like Alaka, not to my hips.
Right. But then you got a whole other slew of problems, you know.
Yeah.
But anyway, all that garlic though. I mean, these witches aren't going to have to worry about vampires if they're loaded up with garlic. So that's
I think if you're a witch, you probably have at least a unspoken alliance with vampires.
Do you think so?
Like you don't bother them, they don't bother you. I imagine it's a very like we just don't even interact with the vampires.
Okay.
So
all right.
Werewolves. I just imagine that like all of them. All of like these the creatures of the night, the monsters, they gotta stay kind of out of each other's way.
Sure, you gotta
look out. War between werewolves, vampires, witches, and mummies, and then like regular townsfolk being like, "Have you been noticing a lot of werewolves versus mummies versus vampires in town streets?"
It causes.
I used to not believe them.
Well, that's probably why it's the magic is forbidden. I would assume. Yeah. It's probably why.
Quick question.
Yes.
A vampire walks into your house. Well, I guess he can't walk into your house. You're outside, and a vampire walks on the street and is like, I'm a vampire. You 100% believe he's a vampire. Yeah. And he is. He's 100% a vampire. He offers you to become a vampire. Do you take it?
Absolutely not.
I do.
We all know that. We all know that.
I'm just asking.
You're down for immortality, and I'm not.
Immortality, yeah, and vampireness. That'd be sweet. I mean, I guess I would just attack bad people.
Man, you could read so many Star Trek books, though. If you were immortal, you could actually like get through them all.
That's the thing you do.
Well, not me. I wouldn't become immortal, but you could get a Marvel Unlimited account, and you could just be like issue 1, and you could get through it.
Issue 1 of Marvel, please.
Yeah, calling them up.
But then my Nook
screen. Do they
answer
the phone?
My Nook screen breaks.
That's true, but
suddenly
eventually,
I'm just like, it was time now.
Yeah, it was. Okay. With apologies to Burgess Meredith. Are you going to read this witch book or no?
No.
Okay.
Not my jam. A little too talky for a YA book. Honestly, when I read a YA book, I need it to be a little little bit more sparse and a little bit quicker.
Less talky, more walky. Yeah.
Yeah, like when I read something that is just huge paragraphs, but it's also for like the YA audience, my brain just kind of shuts off.
Yeah.
The reading level, but the word count don't match up in my mind for
that
my
makes sense.
So,
although often they're super long too.
I know.
Mean, like even the latest Hunger Games, the whatever that's called, Ballad of Songbird and Snakes, that was incredibly long. Anyway,
I don't. I tend to. Maybe that's not true, but it's the YA fantasy. They just get. I mean, they're training them to read the massive tomes of adult fantasy.
Yeah, that's for sure. All right, Life Events, a novel by Carolina Wacławiak. All right, in this exquisite novel, Carolina Wacławiak rightly recasts the American West as the territory of wandering dreams and dreamers and the land where this life and the improbable afterlife most often collide. Life Events is deeply moving meditation on death and the dying, the fierce weight of marriage and family, and the unrelenting absurdity of being alive. That's Hannah Lilith Asadi, author of Sonora. Let's see. Life Events follows Evelyn, who is 37, is on the verge of divorce, and is dreading the deaths of everyone she loves. She combats her existential crisis by avoiding her husband and aimlessly driving along the freeways of California looking for an escape. One that eventually comes when she discovers a collective of exit guides. Evelyn enrolls in their training course. What that she learns provides a companionship and a final exit for terminally ill patients seeking a conscious departure. She meets Daphne, a dying woman still full of life, Lawrence, an aging porn king, and Daniel, who seems too young to die and for whom she falls, despite knowing better and breaking the exit code guide. Look out. Each client opens something new in Evelyn, allowing her to access her own grief and confront the self-destructive ways she suppresses her pain. When Evelyn travels through the Southwest to an afterlife convention to further her death education, she must fully face her complicated relationship with her alcoholic father and reconcile her life choices. Sensitively observed and darkly funny, Life Events is a moving, enlivening story of the human condition, the doldrums of loneliness, the consuming regret of past mistakes, and the thrill, finally, of finding meaning and love where you least expect it. Does that do anything for you?
Last time I found love and meaning in the place I least expected was in a microwavable pizza.
Oh, that sounds good. Was it a freshetta?
Yeah.
I like the freshettas.
That's the problem with starting something and not having an end game right there.
No, I liked it. I thought it was strong.
That's the fear and danger of improv.
I picked this one up mostly because of the cover. It has a nice, like, sort of a tundra sort of vibe on the front here, and I was digging it. Chapter 1. The hills around the freeway were a dusty yellow, showing the wear from months of drought. Winter rain hadn't settled in yet, and the last few years had been absent in significant storms. I was not good at having confrontation, so I was fleeing again. After you've driven through Mojave, California, there isn't much left of the way of towns as you head north. An airplane graveyard sparks up from the dry brush a few miles out, where pickup trucks with "Don't Tread on Me" stickers drive fast on narrow roads, the kind of roads that lead into vast desert nothingness, punctuated only by rusted, spray-painted freight trains that roll slowly towards one border or another. Outside Mojave, red rocks spring up before giving back over to flat, dusty land, dotted with wind-worn white crosses jutting out at different mile markers by the road, signifying people who didn't make it home. I mean, the premise is kind of interesting, but this isn't doing nothing for me. What do you think?
I don't know. I guess the description's fine. Like the
but
Mojave Desert.
It's a lot of it.
More to come.
Yeah.
You got no attention span for these sexy books today.
I don't. Dolled up
and are ready out here. And
I'm sorry.
It's like a bachelor version of book clubs.
You're right.
You're just keeping the rose to yourself.
Honestly, the penguin one, as soon as it was in first person from the 90-year-old lady saving penguins, I just thought you can't sustain that premise so long. So you're right. I made a jump decision. I'm going to jump into this book a little bit more. Chapter 4. After the first exit guide training with Bethany, I was completely exhausted. I told Bobby I wasn't sleeping well and crawled into bed without eating dinner. I fell asleep without weed or Xanax, and I had a recurring dream, one that I hadn't had in a few weeks. It was a kind that scared me into believing that I can see the future, and it always started the same way. In my dream, my mother and father are staying with me, and I'm afraid my father will die, and I don't know what to do with the body. Ooh, spooky. Did you have a lot of recurring dreams as a kid?
Recurring themes, not a lot of, like, dreams don't happen a lot, but there was a point where I was starting to watch zombie films, and it was like every other dream was a zombie dream.
Yeah.
There were a few Terminator dreams.
Okay.
The Terminator was always the villain in it, because just the slow, plotting, consistent chasing was a thing that happened a lot in my dreams. So being chased
I had mostly scary dreams as a kid, and I did have a couple recurring ones that I would always I was afraid that I was going to have that dream again, and then I would because I was thinking about it. So I can relate to the recurring dreams here. I don't know. Yeah. I don't really like that book.
Oh, I'm having a hard time today.
Can I be honest with you? I kind of thought it was supernatural when I was first looking at that. I kind of thought that maybe it was like she was helping people on a more like metaphysical way, like get to the next stage in life. Her being just like an emotionally distant, like death coach, a death doula, maybe you could say. I don't think it's
a death doula prepares somebody for death. Oh wait, you said death coach.
That's what
right.
she's doing.
Yeah.
That's what she's doing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll read the death doula book instead. I don't think this one's going to do it. All right, give me your last one.
5 Total Strangers by Natalie D. Richards. Mira needs to get home for the holidays, badly. But when an incoming blizzard results in a canceled connecting flight, it looks like she might get stuck in the airport indefinitely. And then Harper, Mira's glamorous seatmate from her initial flight, offers her a ride. Harper and her 3 friends can drop Mira off on their way home.
And I'm sorry, are you saying Mira, as in Mira, the Queen of Zebel?
M-I-R-A.
Whose husband is Aquaman, King of Atlantis, King of the Seven Seas?
M-I-R-A.
Different Mira?
M-I-R-A.
Okay.
Mira.
Okay.
But as they set off, Mira realizes fellow travelers are all total strangers, and every one of them is hiding something. Soon, roads go from slippery to terrifying. People's belongings are mysteriously disappearing. Someone in the car is clearly lying and may even be sabotaging the trip. But why? And can Mira make it home alive, or will this nightmare drive turn fatal? Chapter 1.
Okay.
The cabin lights flicker on and I blink awake, neck stiff and mouth tacky.
Sure.
An overhead bin rattles. Turbulence. I yawn and one of my earbuds slips out just as we drop through the air pocket. The airplane settles with a jolt. Scattered gas and snatched of panic conversation rise in the cabin. The intercom crackles. Folks, we're about 20 miles outside Newark. As you might have noticed, the weather has intensified, so it's going to be a bumpy descent. My seatmate, Harper, shifts impatiently. Cue the hysteria. I laugh because it's true. Infrequent flyers always get twitchy when pilots start tossing around words like turbulence, bumpy, or weather. Across from us, a woman with dark eyes and thin lips tightens her seatbelt to the point of obvious discomfort. I imagine painting the scene. I'd focus on her face, blurring out the rest. The mix of fear and energy in her eyes tells the story. I'm liking this writing.
Yeah, this is my favorite so far.
Oh, let's see. This goes to chapter 2. No, what do we got next? I'm going to skip to chapter 3. We slip for the first time on a patch of highway that doesn't look bad at all. It's nothing big, a quick sideways shuffle of wheels that's more surprising than scary. Before my heart can even speed up, some high-tech traction system gets us back under control. Mm-hmm. The road looks mostly dry. Black ice, maybe just a slick spot. Oh, I've lost my preview. That's fine. That's fate telling me to stop while I'm ahead.
I guess so.
Yeah, I'd read this book.
Okay, we got a winner.
It seems like it's totally that genre of I don't even know what's the genre. Just psychological horror.
Yeah.
Is that where we are these days?
That sounds fair. Yeah.
Yeah. The cover's pretty good. It's a white frosty cover. You can just see this black automobile standing out from the white background of this wintered ravaged road. Mm-hmm. And then you got 5 total in kind of a impact font, maybe like that zombie impact font.
Yeah.
And strangers looks like it's been scribbled on there in terror.
That's scary.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I've just been reading horror books. I think maybe it's my calling to write horror now.
Huh.
What do you think?
I would read it. Yeah, you're a talented writer. I'd be first in line.
Let's read the horror book?
Yeah.
I need a list of your 5 biggest fears, Nick.
I think you could figure that out. I think you'd be fine.
I could.
I don't think you'd have any trouble.
It's a small enough town. Why aren't people coming to the meetings? Everybody should be invested.
Okay, now
this one park is gonna influence our children.
Real. It's too real what you're doing now. That's becoming more a parody, I think, than anything else.
Sorry.
That's okay. That's all right, Eric. It sounds like you've got one on your list. I still have a few from past sexy new books that I want to read, but none of the ones I have here today are going to do it. Still like the cover. I like both covers. I'm not going to lie about that.
Yeah.
But I don't think I'm actually going to read the book.
Yeah.
All right. Next week, This has been a topic that we've talked about for years. You're thinking of more of my fears and how you would write them
I'm thinking more of your fears.
Yeah, I understand.
Nick walked into the principal's office. There was her ballot slipped, unmailed. It wouldn't make it in time.
No, that's now it's
the principal of the school didn't vote.
Didn't vote. Yeah, that's a good title. It's a good title. If it was going to be like a junior series or like that middle grade series, the principal didn't vote is actually a pretty good title. And I would read it. I feel seen, but I would read it.
Yeah. I guess I'm just picking up things that make you want to like punch a hole in a wall, not so much things that scare you.
It's true. Sometimes they're one and the same.
Yeah.
Did Steven Spielberg ever do horror? Because that's our topic for next week. Is there a scary? I mean, Jaws. You could see Jaws.
Jaws is horror. I guess you could count Duel as horror.
Okay.
I think Jaws. Gosh, I don't want to get this wrong, and then like people are like, well, actually, War of the Worlds is sci-fi horror in its own fashion.
And if you think about the horrors of mankind in general,
well, I mean, okay. So he did some of the Twilight Zone movies.
The straight horror.
Producer and writer on Poltergeist. I mean, that's
he's produced more horror than he's directed. Gremlins and Poltergeist and a few other scary. You've seen his name, executive or regular producer on that stuff.
The thought of having to sit through the Adventures of Tintin again is horrifying to me, if that counts.
Yeah.
Anyway, you've been saying we should do a Steven Spielberg spotlight just like randomly. I feel like throughout this, and we never have actually like settled down and doing it. So, gosh darn it! Next week we're talking about filmmaker, director, producer Steven Spielberg.
Yeah.
Are you excited?
The bearded one.
Is there any that you want to try to get on your list? Like any that you haven't seen that you want to see before we record this episode?
Gosh, I don't know if it will happen though. I haven't seen Empire of the Sun, and I haven't seen The Terminal.
I have seen The Terminal.
Okay.
There's honestly quite a few that I haven't seen.
Sugarland Express I haven't seen, and the one that's really bad, 1941.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, haven't seen that one.
It's actually, I mean, we should save this for next week, but looking at the list, it's actually there's more than I thought. So.
Oh, I have much less Spielberg in front of me than I do behind me now.
Okay. Well, then that is going to do it for this week's episode of the All the Book Show. Remember, you can check out our spinoff, Comic Book Coffee Break, over on RadioMeanwhile.com or on YouTube. And join us next week for Steven Spielberg Spotlight. We'll see you then.